Will Dustin Pedroia be in the Hall of Fame? Let's get into it. So today I just wanted to go over the case for one of my favorite players to get into the Hall of Fame, and that would be Mr. Laser Show, aka Dustin Pedroia. And at Dustin Pedroia's peak, he was one of the most exciting players to put on a uniform. Everyone loved him. He was a great player. He was the little engine who could, defied all odds, went out there and just dominated for about a decade. And it was special to watch. It was special to see the guy's an amazing athlete. He's only 5'9", 170 pounds when he came into the league. He's an outstanding player. He's right up there as, probably the second or third best second baseman in the 21st century between Robinson Cano, Jose Altuve, and whoever else you want to put in there. At Dustin Pedroia's prime, he was a force to be reckoned with. So let's get into the numbers, see if he's Hall of Fame worthy, because we're coming up on sort of this interesting dynamic shift in Hall of Fame voting, because a lot more guys who are getting on the ballot don't have the insane number of games played or the insane number of innings pitched that guys who traditionally get into the Hall have. So guys like Felix Hernandez, who might not have pitched for as long as, say your Justin Verlanders or your Max Scherzers, there's quite an argument for those guys because the game has evolved. So whether you're a take the person at their prime, whether they were the most dominant athlete, or if you're going to look at the whole body of work, that sort of changes. So I just want to lay out the body of work that Dustin Pedroia put out there and see if that's going to qualify him for the Hall of Fame. So PD first appeared on the Baseball Writers Association America's ballot last year in 2025. He received 11.9% of the votes. You need 75% to get into the Hall of Fame. So not particularly close at all. So I think right off the bat, as an indication, he's probably not getting in if we're just going to ask the writers. But I think his case is very strong. So some of his career numbers include being one of 16 primary second basemen to win the MVP award. That's pretty hard to do if you're a second baseman. That's tied lowest for position player groups in all of MLB history to win the MVP is second baseman. The other one is shortstop. Both groups have each had 16. So to be one of the 16 is very impressive. Getting into Dustin Pedroia's baseball reference page, the guy had a 299 career batting average in the better part of 11 seasons. To hit 299 in the modern era is just insane to think about when everyone almost only cares about strikeouts and home runs. That's all it's the true three outcome: strikeout, walk, or home run. And this guy had a 299 batting average. And that's why I have so much respect in today's game for guys like Bo Bichette, Shohei Ohtani, Aaron Judge, guys who still hit for average as well as launch bombs. It's incredible to look at. Dustin Pedroia has also led the MLB in hits for one season. He had 213 back in 2008. That was his MVP season. He also did win Rookie of the Year in 2007, the same year the Red Sox won the World Series. He was incredible, broke right onto the scene, dominated early. There's no question about it. He's a four-time All-Star, two-time World Series winner, four-time Gold Glove, maybe one of the best defensive second basemen to ever play the game, a Silver Slugger, and a Wilson Overall Defender Award. Just overall well-rounded, solid baseball player. The guy did everything. He was the perfect second baseman. If you would build a second baseman in a lab, it'd probably be Dustin Pedroia. And maybe you make him a switch hitter, I don't know, but the guy could play ball, and he was prepared every single day. So he's just incredible. Overall, fantastic career. He finished his career with 51.8 WAR, and for a second baseman, 140 home runs is pretty good. That position doesn't really have a lot of pop, so the fact that he squeaked out 140 homers is huge. He did not reach the elusive 2,000 hits, though, so I think that definitely plays a factor into it. He just didn't play long enough. The injuries at the end of his career, that knee injury, derailed his entire career. He was probably on a Hall of Fame path. But here comes the argument of, do you take guys in their prime or do you take the full body work? Because I know in Dustin Pedroia's prime in 2008 through 2013, he was probably the best infielder on the planet. All right, as we scroll down to his fielding stats, as a career, he's a defensive run saves of 100. That's pretty good. About 9 per year. He played almost 13,000 innings in the field, won 4 Gold Gloves. Like, the guy's an absolute stud. The defensive numbers are just insane. You can look at them yourself. Like, you're hard pressed to find much of a better second baseman defensively ever. So now let's compare his numbers to what baseball referencing is calling JAWS leaders. And this is almost like WAR, but it's sort of tailored to Hall of Fame numbers. It's trying to put people on a better sort of scale or comparison model. So, in terms of WAR, Dustin Pedroia is 23rd among all second basemen in the history of baseball. And he played 11 seasons, so it was a pretty damn good career. He averaged a little bit over 5 WAR a season, I would say, in his full seasons. So at the peak, he was, one of the best players in the league. Now he's not up there with Robinson Cano, Craig Biggio, Chase Utley, etc. He didn't play as many years as these guys, but he was just as dominant, if not more dominant. So he's going to finish at 51. And as you can see right there in between Bobby Gersh and Robinson Cano, the average of 21 Hall of Famers at this position is 69.1. And this, I feel, is very heavily skewed by the guys at the top of the list. Your Rogers Hornsby, Eddie Collins, Nap LaJoy, Joe Morgan. Those guys who accumulated 100 WAR make this just absolutely insane. Like, it makes the average just astronomically high. So I think if you're below 69, you still have a chance to get in. You don't need 69 necessarily, because some of these old players just wore off the charts because they played forever and they played in a league in which they could hit 375 every year. So the game has definitely changed, and I think we're going to start to see players with less than average WAR for the Hall of Fame start to get in as time continues to go on. And then if we look at the actual JAWS statistics, which I mentioned earlier, Dustin Pedroia would be even lower on the list. He would be 20. And out of the average of all the players that are in the Hall of Fame at second base, of the 21, there's 56. Dustin Pedroia has 46. So if you just look at these two numbers, he's short. But if you look at the entire, sort of curve or the entire group of players that's in there, he's probably on the lower end, and he might be able to sneak in because his WAR might qualify as, probably bottom third. But I think if you're going to go, again, with the peak argument, what did he do in his peak seasons, he could get in. So, single season leaders and records for fielding percentage as a second baseman, I wanted to pull this up because Dustin Pedroia has the fifth best defensive season of a second baseman all time. 2014, 99.69% fielding percentage. Ridiculous. Through 150 years of baseball stats, or however many years of baseball stats you out there, the guy has the fifth best defensive season as a second baseman. Second base is not going to play right field. It's not. It's just one of the harder positions in baseball. You got to go to your right to cover the bag. You got to go to the left to throw it to first base. He was just an incredible fielder and put together one of the best defensive seasons of all time. So I think he's worthy of getting some recognition for that. And, that should boost his candidacy. On top of that, he's 34th all time in O-WAR and 15th all time in D-WAR among second basemen. So, his defensive metrics probably more important than his offensive metrics. And I know everyone likes to look at the offense, but if we are considering defense as half of the game, which we should because it is half the game, I think Dustin Pedroia has a really strong argument to get into the Hall. Dustin Pedroia's playoff numbers, they're not outstanding. They don't necessarily jump off the chart at you. 2007 was a fantastic year for him. He hit 283. He had 2 homers, 6 doubles in the playoffs. He was very, very good that playoff season. The other year they won the World Series, 2013, he was all right. He hit 238, no home runs, 2 doubles. So his playoff numbers aren't David Ortiz level. They aren't Shohei Ohtani level. They're not crazy. They're not going to jump off the chart. But the fact that he did get the job done twice definitely helps his profile. And I get it's a team sport, but he was the leader. He's one of the faces of those two teams. So this chart is more of a comparison as well. So as you can see here, the non-Hall of Famer, the average baseball player throughout the course of history is in black, and the Hall of Fame average is in gold. And this is laid out by position. I love this graph. This is a Fangraphs chart. So as we put kind of plug Dustin Pedroia's career into here, WAR, he falls 10 short. And I know I mentioned that before. It's, you know, the WAR average is an average for a reason, because you have guys who dominated for 10 years and then either retired or had a devastating injury and left, as in Pedroia's case. So he's 10 short below the average. I still think it's a plausible WAR to pass him and get him into the Hall. The WRAA is below average. OBP is very close. His career slugging percentage is close. Home runs, he's already there. Average, he's already there. ISO, he's there as well. Walk to K ratio, now that is below Hall average. He has a 0.95, which is below the typical almost 1.5 that a second baseman has over their career. His BSR, his base running, is negative 2.8 on Fangraphs. And if you look at his Fangraphs chart for BSR, he was an above average base runner for 12, 13 seasons. When he had a knee injury in 2017 and, continued to try and play through that, his base running was in dreadful negative 4.4. So that just killed his base running. So if you take out that one horrible year of base running, he's going to be a positive base runner, which is, not up to the 15 level that's here in the, average Hall of Famer, but it's still not, he wasn't a bad base runner by no means at all. He wasn't a bad player in that aspect. He just had a knee injury that just killed him later in his career and killed the stat numbers. So I think you have to tell the full story when you look at stats like this. And then his 2006 rookie season, in which he only played about, I don't know, call it 31 games he played in 2006. He was also a negative base runner, so the sample size really wasn't that large. He was a rookie, no idea what he was doing. So if you take those two numbers out, he's probably close to being like a 5 positive base runner over his career, which still doesn't get you to the 15, but it's not horrific. He's not, the worst base runner of all time. And then if you look at his defense is slightly below, but again, his career was cut short. He couldn't accumulate all the stats that he could. Manny Machado, early in the 2017 season, slid into Dustin Pedroia's leg at second base. Dustin Pedroia left the game. He continued to try and play through the injury just because he was a warrior. He wants to be out there every day. He wants to compete and he wants to win. And playing every day eventually, culminated the injury into something larger. So he ended up having to go on the DL in 2017, tried to rehab in 2018, didn't happen, tried to make a return in 2019, that also couldn't happen. Then COVID occurred, and then he officially retired before the 2021 season. So this, non-violent sort of knee injury, you would call it, ended his career, cut it short. If he had been given another 3 or 4 years of playing time, he probably could have collected another 10 WAR. Probably could have collected 2,000 hits for sure. Probably could have had another, 20 to 30 homers to put on the resume. This guy would have been in the Hall of Fame if he would have had another 3 or 4 years onto his playing career. Now, I know everyone's going to say, well, he didn't, so he shouldn't be in there. He doesn't have the total stats. But this is where, are you a large haul guy or are you a small haul guy comes into place. And if you're a large haul guy like me, I think you should take the guys who are absolutely dominant in their peak because it's a museum. And this was one of the better players in the 2010s, 2000s era that we've ever seen. So I think you should honor guys like this. It's not his fault that an injury cut his career short. I think you have to look at the full story together and take that into consideration. And then obviously, if you're a small haul guy, you're going to say, well, he's not the most elite of the elite. But my argument against all small haul people is that, time's only going to go on. You're only going to have one greatest shortstop of all time. You're only going to have one greatest second baseman of all time. So at some point, you're going to have to expand your voting to include guys that weren't the greatest of all time, but were pretty damn good. And I think that's the case for Dustin Pedroia. So that's why I'm a large hall guy, and I think he should get in. Is he going to get in? Unfortunately, probably not. But that's the reality we live in. Let me know your thoughts in the comments and questions below. Let me know who you guys think should get in, if we should have a large hall or a small hall, and what your opinion is on the Hall of Fame just in general. I think they do a good job. I just think there's a couple tweaks we need to be made, like Pete Rose, Barry Bonds, the guys like Pedroia's who had short careers but were absolutely phenomenal when they did play.